Okay, well, we might get this webinar underway. Welcome everybody. My name is Alison Airy and I'm the CEO of ACBC in New South Wales. We're really delighted to be bringing you this webinar today, collaborating with Blue Planet PR. Of course, the theme for today is Little Red Book, Xiaohongshu, if my pronunciation is okay. Really increasingly powerful tool, very interesting marketing tool in China. So a little bit about the format for today. I'll in a moment hand over to our presenters from Blue Planet PR. And they'll give you a bit of a presentation about the platform, including some case studies, and then we will have the opportunity to answer questions from you. So as we normally do, we'll use the Q&A function, which is at the bottom of the screen. So if you do have a question, and we do encourage those, please use that Q&A function and I'll read them out to our presenters. We should have plenty of time for questions. So without further ado, I might introduce our speakers for today. Firstly, we have Sophie Blue, who is the founder and director of Blue Planet PR, a company that she established in 2010. And Sophie's got over 20 years experience in PR and communications. And Blue Planet PR has works across industries, but with a particular focus on tech and the non-profit sector, and clients include IMB Bank and Australian Red Cross. Blue Planet PR also has a significant specialisation in social media and influencer outreach, including the social media landscape in China. And then we'll hear from Mike Sway, who is a great devotee of Little Red Book and works a lot on Little Red Book in her practice. She's International Account Manager for Blue Planet PR and is responsible for strategy and PR execution for global clientele. And Mai is a graduate of UNSW. So Sophie, if you're ready, we'll hand over to you to get started.
Okay, all right. I'm just going to share my screen, so bear with me. Okay. Okay, can everybody see that?
Looks good to me, Sophie.
Okay, all right. Okay, I'll get started then. Alison, thank you for your introduction and thank you so much for inviting us along today. We're really excited to speak to everyone about Little Red Book, which is probably a bit less well known than WeChat. Now, before I get started, I know that there are some people on this webinar today who will be devotees of Little Red Book and know a lot about it. But I also know that there are some people who will be new to Red. So I'm going to keep things really high level and simple for today so everyone can understand it. So starting off, just a bit more information about ourselves. As Alison said, I'm the founder and director of Blue Planet Public Relations, and we're based in Balmain in Sydney. We work very closely with MGI Entertainment, who are also a very active member of the ACBC. And together we deliver to our clients marketing solutions in marketing and PR in both Australia and China. So Blue Planet, we're very focused on PR, publicity, media relations, event management when we're actually having events, and social media. Whereas MGI, they've got offices in here and Shanghai and New York, and they really focus on working with brands that are looking to expand into China And one of their many fortes is building partnerships with celebrities and KOLs. So, we work together to work across both markets. And one project that I want to give a shout out to that we're currently working on is called Cook to Connect. And MGI and Blue Planet are working with a collection of celebrity chefs to raise money for Oz Harvest and the Black Dog Institute. And if any of you are awake at around sort of 7 or 8 a.m. this coming Sunday morning, please turn on Weekend Sunrise, because all of their weather crosses will be from Manu Feldel's private kitchen here in Sydney for the Cook to Connect campaign. So yes, shout out to what we're doing on Sunday. Okay. Now, before I dive into Red, I'm going to assume that everyone here has a broad understanding of the social media landscape in China. Insofar as the Western platforms like Facebook, Google, Twitter, etc., unless you have a private VPN, they're by and large not accessible. So therefore, China has developed, I find this really interesting because China has developed almost like a petri dish of its own social media landscape with some of the most popular apps and platforms now in the world. So obviously you've got things like QQ, which is instant messaging, online services, Weibo, which you're probably all familiar with, very similar to Twitter, Douban, Baidu, which is a search engine, and the most well-known of all apps, WeChat, which is known as the Swiss Army knife of apps because it has so many different capabilities. It's got over 1.25 billion monthly users. There's also Youku, which is a streaming provider not dissimilar to YouTube or Hulu. But we, as Alison has said, we are going to focus on the Red Book. So what is it exactly? When I'm talking to people about doing this presentation today, everyone's reaction automatically is, oh, isn't that something to do with Chairman Mao? It's like, well, no, it's not really. It's also known as Alison said, Xiaohongshu or Red. It was created in 2014 and it has become one of China's foremost fashion, luxury, lifestyle and shopping platforms. Now, the numbers that I've got here, being around 100 million, I think they're actually probably conservative. Other articles that I've read have said that's probably a couple of 100 million. But certainly most of the users on Red are younger women. So women who want to discover and review beauty and health products, lifestyle, food, products and information that otherwise can be hard to find. And one thing which I find really interesting about Red is it's technically not a shopping or an e-commerce platform. It's actually something quite different, which is what sets it aside, I think, from other platforms such as WeChat. So you'll see on this slide here, I've got a couple of different points of information. And so how does Red actually work? So it's a content sharing site. So users post product photos with reviews, tags, tips, and other people can read, comment, and save to their own boards on Red, a bit like Pinterest. It's been described as Instagram meets Pinterest with a sprinkling of Taobao. But one thing that really sets it aside, it's got a unique blend of trusted content. It's user-generated content. It's word of mouth advertising, and it builds communities. So it's got a certain integrity to it that other platforms don't. In terms of the visuals, there's design is between about 3 to 6 pictures, text descriptions between about 220 and 200 characters, emojis, and the distribution of content is algorithm driven. But broadly, I would say it's probably a bit more equitable than other platforms, and we'll explain why in a minute. So why is it popular, and why is it growing in popularity? Well, as I mentioned, it's trustworthiness. So this is a quote that I found in an article when I was pulling this presentation together. So lots of online ratings and short reviews are posted by bots, but Redbook has better reviews that are from actual users. So it's seen as more honest, accessible, and it also avoids many of the typical e-commerce practices that can be off-putting for users and for brands alike, such as anonymous reviews or one-click ratings. And it's this integrity with Little Red Book that makes it a lot easier for users to know when they're being sold to, when they're viewing a paid ad, or when it's the real deal and it's authentic content. So it's quite refreshing and it's honest. So yeah, that is a key component of its popularity. So here are some of the key features of Redbook, and they're not dissimilar to what you'll find in Western social media platforms as well. There's the Explore feature, so you can explore content based on current trends, topics of interest, the latest must-have products. You can look at reviews. There's the Follow feature where you can keep up to date with your favourite influencer or KOL. Nearby, which is a geo-targeting feature, you can be pointed to great cafes or restaurants or shops that are close to where you are. And then there's the brand section as well. So users can search in the brand section for particular products or brands, and this section shows posts that are generated by users with reviews, also which can link you to the Little Red Bookstore tab. Now, just like other apps, Little Red Book aims to keep users within the app, but sometimes brands may link to a Tmall site or to platforms or places outside of Little Red Book as well. But ultimately, Red aims to keep people within the ecosystem of their own app. So I'm going to hand over to Mai now, who, as we said, is a very active user on Red, and she's going to talk through a few things from the user's perspective. So yeah, Mai, take it away.
Thank you, Sophie. So hi everyone. And I started using Little Red Book kind of as an experiment that I wanted to try out because as some of us may know, Little Red Book started off as a luxury kind of review site, and people would mostly post about the luxury purchases they had and items that they have. That in the beginning didn't really attract me, and as time went on, Little Red Book had a makeover of their target audiences, and everyone started getting involved, and it's honest reviews and everything, and it's supposed to provide a platform for everyone to equally publish their opinions on some products, and it's a great information source. So after hearing this, I decided to create an account as sort of an experiment to see if this is true. So that's when I started my Little Red Book journey. The picture that you can see on the slide is are some of my screenshots. I started this account without telling any family or friends, with no promotion whatsoever. I started from 0 subscribers, and I just went to post my first article and my second one, and I've gained a little bit of a following as you can see, over 560 subscribers, purely based on the content that I posted. And my finding is that, yes, it is true. Little Red Book is actually really authentic and fair in kind of promoting the average user's content. You don't have to come from a big brand. You don't have to spend a lot on promotion. You don't have to be a KOL. You can just be anyone with content that people actually want to read. And all you've got to do is work out what that actually is. So as you can see on the user's perspective on the slide, I've got articles that I've written that has gotten 3,582 views. Another one has 3,424 views. And I believe my most viewed content was 58,000 and some views. And you can see there's an example of my personal homepage, and I have gotten 4,396 number of likes and saves, and that's purely from the content I posted. And one of my most popular article was on the Woolworth Bunch program. I've written a tutorial on how to get accepted into the program, and that was really popular. And the target audience for that one was just everyone, male, female, age group was broad, and that has brought me a lot of subscribers. So there are articles like that, which you different articles will gain you different exposure and different kind of results. Some articles, some topics will attract subscribers. Some would only attract likes, some would attract likes and saves, and some would only start conversations, as in attract comments. So there's a lot to work out, and I've experienced with different kind of topics, and I think I have a little bit of formula worked out there. Okay, Sophie, do you mind going to the second page?
Sure.
Thank you. So yeah, so that's on the second page. You can see some more number of views on that I can see on my end, and different kind of articles. As you can see, the Woolworth Bunch program article has gotten 843 likes and 898 saves, and that alone is just genuine content. And Little Red Book tends to recommend genuine content when it recognizes it to all of its associated users based on their location and their interest. So brands can probably utilize that. So instead of posting just some really fancy ad and just talking about yourself, maybe think about what the viewers are really interested in and write on that topic and kind of create something from there, which is really a lot more authentic. And getting people like me, an average user, to review your product, and along with KOLs, can really help with your brand's presence on Little Red Book.
Okay. All right. If I could just jump in here as well.
Yeah.
With Little Red Book, there's been the rise of the KOC, haven't they? Like, instead of the KOL, the key opinion leader, it's the key opinion consumer, which is probably similar to here in Australia, what we'd know as micro influencers. So influencers that have a more, I suppose, I mean, I think authentic's become a bit of a cliche these days, but a more authentic voice in what they write about. So, and usually are more affordable than the big huge KOLs as well.
Definitely, yeah. So I myself, I think I belong to that category. So I've made myself into that, and I think I can speak for that and that group, and says that the content that we produce is just a lot likely to get promoted by Little Red Book, and that's what's special about this platform. So any other platform that I've found compared to Little Red Book maybe lacks a little bit more in that area, and Little Red Book is just a much better platform in this way.
Yeah, and also being an open source platform, Little Red Book is the content that you create here in Australia. It can be easily seen by friends or family in China. Is that right, Maya?
It will depend on the kind of topic, if it's related to actual people in China, or what kind of hashtag that you tend to use, or keywords that you use. Because if you wanted to reach mainland China, then you would probably need to do something about hashtags or keywords or topics that attract them, that will actually get promoted to them, instead of just people, mainly just people here in Sydney, Australia.
Yeah. Right. Okay. All right. Well, on the topic of brands then, what we'll show now is some famous brands that are strutting their stuff on Red. What would you have to say about these brands and what they're doing?
Okay, so as you can see, they've jumped on the Little Red Book wagon, and yeah, they're I reckon they're doing pretty good, as in getting more exposures on Little Red Book. And you can see David Jones and Blackmores is actually a screenshot of their official store, so they're doing e-commerce on Little Red Book as well. And all the other brands they're just engaging with Little Red Book users, not only by posting about their sales and events and promotes themselves, but also actively replying to messages and comments to really engage with your audience and get on top of any situations if and when they arise.
Okay. All right, so we thought we'd just spell out here as well, from a brand perspective, if you are wanting to create an official account on Red, what's the process that you have to go through? And from what I can see, there's still, it's still quite an involved process, but I understand that it's not as challenging as, say, getting an official account on WeChat, which is visible within China. So first thing that you have to do is actually register your account on Little Red Book, then provide company details such as, who are the key contacts, company qualifications like your ABN, financial information. You don't need to have a Chinese bank account, which is useful if you're based in Australia. Information about your brand, and also what they call brand qualifications, so trademarks, for example. You then make a submission, and there's a review process which takes about a week, which is pretty good, actually. You'll then receive a contract, both a digital and a physical contract for you to sign. But before you actually are allowed to open your store on Red, you do need to go through a training process, and they won't actually let you physically open for business until you've done that training, which is actually a very useful process to go through. So what I'd like to talk about next is a case study that was undertaken by Blue Planet PR's partner MGI for a Gold Coast-based beauty brand called Alpha H that wanted to expand into the Chinese market. So last year, I'm not sure whether you knew this or not, but last year was the year of the Alpha woman in China. So Alpha H saw this as a great opportunity to launch into China. They had a presence on Tmall Global, and they felt that telling the Alpha story in a sort of fresh and interesting way, using some really aspirational women within the beauty and fashion space within China would be a good way to do it. So what they did is they worked with a prominent fashion designer called Masha Ma to create some limited edition gold earrings, and I'll show them to you in a minute. They're absolutely stunning. and they gifted them to prominent alpha women in China. Now, these women included Angelica Chung, who was the editor of Vogue China, an actress by the name of Chu Chu, who was in a movie called Marco Polo, another leading KOL, called Chen Chen, I believe her name was. And so what they also did was they created a campaign which was a really very sort of holistic and a beautifully integrated campaign, combining PR, KOL outreach, a high-profile event in Shanghai, and interestingly, for the digital reach, they didn't go on WeChat. They just basically focused on Red and Weibo. Now, I'm going to play a video for you now. Fingers crossed it works, okay? So, yes, you can have a look, and shows you the sort of look and the feel of the campaign.
也与妈生妈的女性是同样的出发角度。这一次合作，我们选择了一个经久不衰的配饰——一副耳环。这次设计的重点其实是从黄金出发，整个耳环是由纯金来打造的。
So I didn't get to expand the screen, but that gives you a general idea. I'll show you as well some of the media coverage that it achieved as well. It was identified by media in Australia, New Zealand and China as a really landmark success for the creative approach that it took. Here's a piece which got up in Beauty Directory. And I'll show you these earrings. They're just to die. How beautiful are they? Just gorgeous. So they really, it was a really unique and successful approach. So they achieved 30 million media impressions. They had 39 KOLs overall promoting the campaign. On Singles Day, they sold 100 grams worth of product in one day. And there was some live streaming done by the KOLs as well. And one of the KOLs sold 300 packs in under 5 minutes. So for this humble Aussie brand from the Gold Coast, it was, they really whacked the ball out of the park. Here shows you some of the posts that the KOLs posted for the campaign. These are just a selection of many. And yeah, here's the results which they achieved. So on the left are the goals that the client wanted, and on the right were what they actually achieved. So yeah, it was really, I found it interesting that they chose to go with Weibo and Red rather than WeChat. I think that kind of goes to underscore how I suppose challenging it is, unless you've got mega bucks, to get really great visibility on WeChat, whereas Red has that lovely authenticity to it, which works well, particularly for beauty and fashion brands. And I think that is it. So that's all from us. I'll be sharing some articles with Alison and Joanna after this presentation, which they can then share with you, so you can read a bit more about Red. Yeah, but in the meanwhile, thanks for having us.
Great. Thank you so much to Sophie and Mai for that presentation. And Mai, it seems as though you are an influencer in your own right. You're at least a key opinion consumer.
I'm getting there, I think.
Look, we will take questions from the audience now. So as I mentioned earlier, please use that Q&A function on Zoom to send in your questions. But I guess I'll just kick off by homing in on this point about authenticity. So it's really interesting that Little Red Book has algorithms to be able to tell whether a review is authentic or not. I wondered if you could say anything about how it determines whether something is authentic. And secondly, from the viewpoint of a business trying to promote itself on Little Red Book, how do you come across as authentic, and so that it is really welcomed and embraced by this platform?
Okay, so in my opinion, how they determine something, if something is authentic, is based on the first number of viewers' reaction to it. If people tend to like stay a certain time on your page, and whether it's enough to finish a whole article, or if they like or save your content, if they comment on it, that would be a big indicator to that is actually my guess. I don't really know how they do it internally. I think they don't really release that information, but my guess would be most likely from that. From viewers' reactions, and also like if you have been publishing authentic content for a while, that will tend to put you more in the front as well. And yeah, usually I think it's mainly based on your first viewers' reactions and interactions with you. The more interactions that you get, the more promotion that you get, the more your content will appear on everyone's recommended list. And that's why the best content and the most authentic will get the most views. Yep. And what was your second question? Sorry.
Well, I guess my second question was, if you are someone who's wanting to sell on Little Red Book, how do you ensure that your content is seen as authentic? But I guess you've provided the answer in the sense that it's about the quality of the content, I guess.
Yes, and also keep up to date on the trends within your field, and find out what people's interests are and relate that to your product. And then PR will be a good thing to come in then, and professionals will have ideas on what will work for you. And yeah, just basically keep up with the trends and find out what people like and work from there. Yeah, and just make sure it's not too commercial, and have some real opinions into it. I've actually got a good example that I've seen recently on Little Red Book. I'm sure a lot of Chinese residents living in Sydney knows about this app called eBest. It's like an online grocery shop for basically everything, and they've come a long way in a very short amount of time. And a lot of that is due to their rewarding users with credits to spend on their app if they post a genuine review. And that I believe is a good way to get genuine exposure out there. And people were really willing to participate for that one. So I think that's a good strategy for business to utilize.
Fantastic. Now we've got some questions coming in. The first one, not surprisingly, is about cost. So someone's asking about the Alpha H campaign and whether you're able to give a ballpark figure for how much that campaign cost.
Yeah, sure. I just posted an answer to that actually. Yes, okay. I can share that. So that was the campaign cost $250,000. And the sales that they generated from it were very strong. So they made that back within 2 months.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay. Now, we've got another question here. It's about whether you see marketing opportunities for a B2B service provider on this platform.
Look, I'd be interested for Mai's view on this, but I tend to think that where Red really shines is in the B2C space rather than B2B. Just because it has, it's such a visual platform. And if you think about something like Instagram and Pinterest, for example, how often is it that an effective Instagram campaign is done within a B2B environment? Instagram is a platform which of its very nature is is really quite in that consumer space. But you know what? I think it at the end of the day, it depends what industry it's in. You know, if let's say it's a food company or a provider within the fashion industry, then yes, there may be scope for it within B2B.
Yeah, I think it depends on who your B2B target audience is. Are they users of, are they the particular users or typical users of Little Red Book? Yeah.
Okay, well, look, I'll go on to another question now. This is from an audience member who's asked about your comments in your posts on the Fun Tea incident, which seems to have generated quite a lot of comment. She said, have you capitalised on these posts, which were definitely quite intensively exchanged at the time? Also, have you been able to capitalise on your smart consumer experience sharing type of posts?
So my personal account and my content right now are still part of my experiment. I haven't been starting anything off that yet. I wanted to try like what works for me. And so that's why I posted a whole broad range of content instead of just streamlining on one type of personality, one type of blogger, which I just wanted to see which one works, which one doesn't. It's a mixed bag right now. So so I have like on stuff like current events and hot topics, it's definitely a conversation starter. So like I mentioned before, that would be that would bring more comments and more maybe a bit of likes instead of subscribers. So that's the kind of comment that would not bring in a lot of subscribers. And so I haven't been capitalizing on it because I'm still part of, even my username, as if you understand Chinese, you'll be able to see it's quite a tongue twister. It's not an easy name like Sydney Spendaholic, which I plan to use on something like that in the future when I streamline. And it's all part of a big experiment that I'm having. And you're welcome to have a look at my account. And only yesterday, like after all the slides are done, I posted something new about the Woolworth bricks promotion, and that has gone a bit viral. As of now, it's got heaps of views as well. So yeah, it's another experiment that's successful, I'd say.
Okay. And do you get contacted by companies like Woolworths who you write about?
Well, not yet, but if there's anyone from here from Woolworths, please. I'm waiting for your call because I have attracted a lot of exposure for you. So I guess I deserve a call.
Well,
I did. No, not yet. No.
I did my MBA with someone who works in marketing for Woolworths, so I might connect you after this call. I think
Thank you. I have now posted 3 articles on Woolworths, and I'd love to work with them. And so that'll be great.
Fantastic. Yeah. All right. Well, look, there's someone else who has written in saying, is there a way to conduct reputation control on Little Red Book? How do brands deal with negative reviews?
Can I just jump in here and say, if you are launching a brand, and this is, I'm putting my PR hat on really more, it is always worthwhile having an issues management strategy in the top drawer of your desk for when you're launching anything, whether you're putting it up on social media or, doing a TV campaign or whatever, and have a consistent approach of dealing with issues, be they product reviews or negative feedback or whatever, and keep it consistent across all your social media platforms. And usually that is, really quick responses, well thought through, and have someone very senior or really experienced working on the responses that are given to social media comments. Don't put the work experience person on it. Put someone who fully understands the brand and what you stand for and the integrity of your brand.
I completely agree with you, Sophie, on that. Yeah, I'd say engage the help of a professional on this one. It's always good to have representation on it and keeping an eye on everything related to your brand that's posted on Little Red Book. And I have seen disasters happen. I have seen people from brands argue. So in this case, really, really important who you find someone that has the experience and expertise in dealing with this on Little Red Book. The tone of your voice and the words you use are really important in this case.
Yeah. Okay, well, we've got another person who's asked about the insights, that you've gathered in terms of how to get strong response as an authentic page on Little Red Book. And this person's asked, are you going to publish your insights on page performance and engagement? You said you've got, I think, a bit of a formula that you have developed within your own mind as a result of your experience. Yes,
I think that's something I'm planning down the line, depending on which direction I'm going to go. But yes, if you're wanting something like that, that's definitely something I'm looking into. Yeah. From the perspective of a brand who wants to engage an influencer or a KOC, how do they find the right person to represent them on Little Red Book? Have you got some insights on that?
Well, they can always approach someone like MGI. MGI's got an extensive network and database of KOLs and KOCs that work in this space. Or, there are other organisations out there that also specialise in this area. There's also a platform called Park Loo as well. I believe someone from Park Loo actually spoke at an ACBC event maybe a couple of years ago. That's always a good point of reference as well. Mai, are there any other methods that you'd recommend?
If you're not a seasoned user of Little Red Book, or if you haven't spent a lot of time on it, and to find your own KOCs or who you think would benefit your brand, then I would suggest to, listen to Sophie's advice and seek out the professionals and have someone recommend it to you so you don't waste your time.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, I've got another question now about this app for use in targeting the Chinese Australian community here in Australia. That seems to be your major audience, I think, target audience, Mai. So I'm just quite interested if you could maybe comment on the circumstances in which you think Little Red Book could be used to target this community, if you're a business in Australia.
Which community?
So the Chinese Australian community here in Australia.
Yeah, so first of all, make sure your location is set to your local area, like Sydney or even just Australia, depending on the type of content that you're putting out there, and make sure you use the right keywords. That will make sure that your article ends up on the right people's screens. Yeah, and also keep up to trends in your area, like what's needed right now, what's hot right now, what people are after, and just kind of write on that.
Yeah. And would it be suitable, for example?
And I wanted to add, no matter what you're posting out there, it's really important to use really good, like, relevant visuals. And also on Little Red Book, there's a culture of putting like kind of fancy and really bright fonts on some of your pictures on some content that works really well. So make sure you pay attention to how your first page of your picture looks like, and that could sometimes help you stand out.
Yeah. And would it be an appropriate tool for a sort of a shop or a restaurant to utilize?
Yes, it would, and there would be different ways that they can utilize Little Red Book, whether it's becoming a brand themselves, a registered official brand themselves, and have their own page on Little Red Book, or they can just go through KOCs or ordinary users and actually put the name out there through reviews.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm quite interested as well to ask you about the future evolution of this platform. We've heard how it started off as being a platform for reviews of luxury products, and how at one stage, I think 90% of users were female. I think that was in the presentation that's just been shown. But moving forward, do you think, continue to be a platform which is largely for women and for products that women use, or will it evolve in different ways moving forward?
I think if it continues on the path that it is on now, more users, more average everyday users of a broad age range, gender, could become more invested in the or become users of the app. So it'd be more inclusive. And I think that's what they're trying to achieve as well, instead of just staying in their niche like they did before. Because this way it's just becoming a lot more popular and replacing actually some kind of, perhaps maybe replacing some other apps in the future. I see it's got a bright future in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you think it's going to catch up perhaps to some of the bigger apps out there?
It's already like quite a big app in its own right. So yeah, it'll definitely become more popular in my opinion, because even families and friends of mine who's never heard of it before have started using it. And like a lot of our restaurant reviews and product reviews are actually mentioned, I've seen this from Little Red Book. I've been hearing more and more of that, like as time went on.
Yeah. So perhaps if somebody isn't on any of the platforms at the moment, would there be circumstances in which you would choose Little Red Book and not WeChat?
Well, WeChat is used by an even broader range of people because of the communication, the instant messaging kind of features on it, which actually differs from Little Red Book. So WeChat would always have a place, on its own, in my opinion. So that's the difference between, for me, between Little Red Book and WeChat. You don't have to have either or. You can have them both and actually utilizing both a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And coming back to this question of the product or services that are the sorts of things which work well on Little Red Book, what about areas like tourism? Is this a sector that it would be that would be suitable for LRB based promotion?
From my perspective, I have seen a lot of posts on tourism, on travel from Little Red Book. So I think, yes, it may be a good tool to use.
I think broadly just in the lifestyle space, I think food as well lend itself well. Yeah, obviously fashion and beauty are the most obvious ones, but really any industry where there are the potential for beautiful visuals, then it's got a place on Little Red Book.
Yeah. And everybody's of course always interested in return on investment. Would both of you like to say something about that? What should you do to ensure you have the return on investment that you're looking for? What are the metrics that you should look out for?
I'll start, and I'm going to take a broader view like I did with the issues management question. If you're looking for good ROI on any campaign, whether it's Red or WeChat or any other marketing tactic, really you've got to be clear what your goals are up front. They've got to be realistic, measurable, and if it is a sales-based campaign, which Alpha H was, they had very clear goals stipulated up front in terms of what they wanted to achieve. And however you choose to measure ROI, you know, it's the same for any campaign. You've really got to know what you want and how to get it. So that's from the strategic perspective. Mai, what would you say?
I would agree with you, Sophie. I think you're more of the expert in this area.
Oh, I love it when people say that.
There you go. Look, we've got time for one or two more questions, but in the meantime, what we might do is launch a poll. So if people could just spend 30 seconds to a minute just giving us a bit of feedback on this webinar today, that would be really helpful to us as we move forward and plan our program. But just one more from me. Sophie, you mentioned a training course that Little Red Book requires you to do before you get into sales. How does that work? And is that something you can do in the English language?
That's a good question. I imagine that you would, because as we showed on our presentation, there are brands in there, Australian brands like David Jones, but actually I might ask Mai that. Mai, do you know if with the training process that you have to go through with Red, can you do that in English or is it only in Chinese? I imagine you would be able to do it in English.
What do you mean by training?
When a brand's going through the registration process before setting up an official account.
I think most official account setups are done by professionals. So I'm not sure of the actual process involved in the setup process. But yeah, you wouldn't, probably best if you don't know Chinese, probably best for you to engage a professional to do it, because there might be questions that are a bit tough to answer.
You know what? I'm going to call out to a Brains Trust and see if they can give me a definitive answer on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Well, look, we are nearly coming to the end of our webinar today. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in. As Sophie mentioned, we will be posting some, or we will be circulating to you both the recording of this webinar, the slides, and also some articles on Little Red Book that Sophie has found, which she says will be really helpful to people interested in exploring it further. Remember the Cook to Connect program?
Yes, this Sunday, Channel 7, Weekend Sunrise.
Okay, it sounds really fabulous. I'll try to get there myself. I'm sure my son will have woken me up before then. Look, we don't have any more questions. I think we've had a really, really thorough introduction to Little Red Book and some really, really useful insights, I think, presented. We can perhaps wrap things up. Has your Brains Trust got back to you?
No, he hasn't. But I'll let you know when I do have a definitive answer on that.
Okay.
Feel free to say hi to me on Little Red Book, everyone.
That's right. That's the best mode of staying in contact on this subject. Absolutely. So stay tuned for further ACBC events. We are looking at doing something on marketing to global Chinese consumers, which I think is a really interesting area, as opposed to marketing to Chinese consumers in mainland China. And I think probably Little Red Book would be quite a good tool to use in terms of reaching out to that audience as well. But as ever, our upcoming program is viewable on the website, and also we send around regular newsletters to keep you up to date. So thank you once again to Sophie and to Maya for a fabulous presentation today. And thank you, everybody.
Thanks for having us.
Great to meet you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.